Today's topic is...
the hidden hobby thief that has been stealing from you for years.
Wait, somebody's been stealing from us?
And how we've been letting it happen.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to Waypan. I'm Cal.
And I'm Sunny. Today we are going to go over a thief that has been stealing from you for far too long. And to be quite frank, you have been putting up with it, and I don't know why.
Who's been stealing from us? Why would anyone steal from a hobbyist? We're already so poor. Have you seen GW's prices?
There is a secret bit of inflation that has been included in all Games Workshop models. It's no different from what happened to the Stormcast Eternals, Beastmen, and more than half of the Legends list from 40k. They are taking your models from you.
Who are they? What's going on?
Not a person, but a design trend.
Oh, okay.
One that's been growing in the background, quietly changing everything about your models. Scale creep.
Oh no, was he the one watching? Wait, scale creep, is that like with furries?
And why it is a problem.
So it is like furries.
And how it breaks the hobby you thought you knew.
Today we're going to be going over scale creep and why it is a problem, both for you and your hobby, and how its attacks on you.
But behind the jokes and the furry slander, there's a real problem here, one that affects your creativity, your wallet, and your sense of immersion.
And we're going to try and go over it academically.
From now on.
Sunny, please.
Sorry. We are going to try and go over it academically, giving actual academic sources and trying to treat it dispassionately.
But before we do, we need to explain why this even matters in the first place.
Warhammer used to be a playground for imagination.
More and more, it's a product built to dominate your attention, your time, and your wallet.
And we will explain how scale creep is an understated part of that, how it is a secret inflation tax on your hobby.
We're going to go over what scale creep is, true scale, and how people use the term differently, as well as verisimilitude. Verisimilitude.
Verisimilitude is the feeling of reality rather than reality itself. A classic example of verisimilitude breaking occurs with Superman's disguise, a simple pair of glasses. Physically, Superman and Clark Kent look the same. Yet, by placing those glasses on his face, everyone suddenly believes Clark Kent is not Superman.
Why does this break our suspension of disbelief? Why isn't it the flying? Because Superman flies, we see the billowing cape and the way the wind interacts with it. It isn't the super strength, because we see him strain, the ground cracking, and every other cue that makes his power feel real.
But the glasses? There's no convincing explanation for why people don't recognize him. That simple, unexplained disguise snaps us out of the illusion and reminds us this isn't real. That is where verisimilitude fails, when the details don't sell the feeling of reality. To paraphrase one of our sources, internal consistency is everything when it comes to perceived realism.
This is the first core problem in Warhammer with scale creep, and for a hobbyist, immersion isn't a luxury, it's the whole reason we're here. You're not just pushing plastic, you're commanding legends. You're playing your mighty and heroic Space Marines. You're facing off against the Imperial Guard. Obviously, the Governor has gone rogue and the Marines can't possibly be in the wrong. You charge into base-to-base contact and your Space Marines are a full head smaller than the Guardsmen.
Just like Superman's glasses, this tiny inconsistency snaps the illusion. That's how scale creep gets you. Not with big changes, but with tiny betrayals. One subtle break at a time. You can easily accept larger-than-life super soldiers thanks to their billowing banners, the roar of their bolters, and the righteous fury in their eyes. You buy into their immense strength because you see them tear through armored platoons and withstand fire that would end a normal human.
Yet all of that crumbles the moment you realize that these towering demigods are literally looking up at the regular infantry. That's where verisimilitude falls apart. Our minds might handle teleportation beams, alien xenos, and screaming demons just fine, so long as the world's internal logic remains intact.
So let us talk about
True scale.
True scale is a term used by hobbyists to refer to multiple concepts at once. Some use the phrase to mean lore-accurate scale, emphasizing faithful representation of a character or unit size in the game's background stories.
And there's the first trap that nobody seems to agree on what true scale even means. If you're confused, that's the point.
But some other people are more specific.
Whereas others think the term aligns with specific measurement systems, such as 1:72 or 28mm scale, which is all about matching it to other products, which you may wish to do for conversions or for other purposes such as terrain.
Finally, some people see true scale simply as the opposite of heroic scale, where proportions are more realistic than the exaggerated heads, hands, and weapons of many Games Workshop miniatures.
Heroic scale is a style of miniature design common with many war games, especially Warhammer. In this style, certain features of a figure, like the head, hands, and weapons, are enlarged or more pronounced than they would be in a strictly realistic rendition.
These exaggerated proportions are partly a matter of practicality. Bigger details make it easier for painters to pick out facial features, armor plates, and weapon details on a small three-dimensional object.
It also helps a model look more distinctive on the tabletop, whereas units often need to be recognizable from a distance.
However, there is one aspect that we don't see a lot of people hit on, which is how we see ourselves. As you may know, your self-perception is understandably biased, but what you may not know is this is universal.
How much brain power we put to our various body parts, which you can see in this picture of the homunculus. No, not the Full Metal Alchemist version, but the psychological homunculus. We have massive feet, massive hands, massive head,
as well as a massive other part.
Stay on track! This may be the secret reason why we use and enjoy the heroic scale, even unknowingly.
But more likely is the manufacturing perspective. Heroic scale also helps account for the limitations of plastic or metal molding. Thicker limbs and bigger hands reduce the chances of fragile parts snapping during assembly or gameplay.
It also gives every faction or army a certain visual consistency, one that you can recognize immediately.
So which version of true scale is correct?
And that's the genius of it. There's no right answer. And then it can be sold as an upgrade.
True scale means that a model, drawing, or representation is proportionally accurate to the real-life object, with no exaggerations or distortions in size or shape, essentially representing the object at its exact scale without any artistic liberties taken with the proportions. It's considered the most realistic depiction of an object in a smaller size.
Which is a definition that comes from the art world, but you can already start to see the problem. Real life object, no exaggeration, and representing the object at its exact scale. Well, first off, there's no real-life Space Marines.
And wouldn't that idea of the most realistic depiction fit the same as the lore-accurate scale?
These terms break down a lot. So, at its best, we're asking someone what it means when they're talking about true scale.
So why this massive aside on true scale?
Let us move on to the problem. Before we get into the problem, perhaps we should talk about why manufacturers do this. And no, it's not just Games Workshop, but they are the one we're focusing on.
So Games Workshop has been around for a long time, and there has been a lot of technological improvements since they started out. They started out with the hand sculpting, not because they were a company that was artisanal, but because it was the only option. Green stuff, sculpting tools, and a master mold.
Each sculptor had their own style. That led to inconsistencies. You'd get one Space Marine taller than the next, not on purpose, just different hands in the process. So over time, different people worked on the projects. That made different items. So there was inconsistencies and so on.
But now it's all done digitally. Every design is scalable, tweakable, and completely controlled. And that's where things start to shift. This isn't a Luddite rant. We'll come back to this later. But the moment everything went digital, consistency became a choice. A deliberate one.
The other reason is lore updates, such as the Primaris Marines. While many, including ourselves, have argued that Primaris Marines should have just been called the True Scale Marines, and they should have updated the model this way, they made significant lore changes.
Because now that new Marine isn't just a better model, it's a required model. Because the old ones, they start looking wrong. Smaller, weaker, out of place.
Other than keeping up with the Joneses, which is a self-perpetuating problem, the other reason may be purely practical. Last time this model was produced, it had a specific problem. The damn thing would always break because it was too dang fragile. The simple answer, make that part bigger.
But bigger isn't always better.
I swear I can lose weight.
So let's go into the three major problems when it comes to scale creep. And we've already hit the first one. It breaks immersion.
Whether you're assembling, painting, or playing, once your sense of scale snaps, it's gone. It's not a detail you can just ignore. You don't get to choose what pulls you out of the illusion. Your brain does that for you.
And it is just a game, but once that immersion is broken, it's gone forever. And when that illusion breaks, so does the fun. You're not immersed anymore. You're just pushing mismatched plastic. There is no getting it back.
The second problem, creativity, specifically the loss of the scale-compatible bits from outside the walled garden. Sonny, when you have explained the walled garden in the past, you have mostly referred to the Apple brand and how you can only use their products with their products despite having remarkably lower quality pound for pound with their competitors.
A walled garden in Warhammer ensures consistency, quality, and brand cohesion, but also limits consumer choice and outside innovation. By maintaining strict control over models, rules, and lore, Games Workshop keeps the ecosystem tightly knit and highly profitable. This is simultaneously constraining the ways in which fans can experiment or compete in the official hobby space. It also means that stepping outside the garden's walls can come with significant restrictions if players wish to remain welcome at sanctioned events, Warhammer official stores, or even certain game stores.
But you haven't explained why it's bad.
You've been reading the shorts comments again, haven't you?
Yeah.
The reason why it is bad is because where's a hand with, let's say, an open palm? Too much? Okay, how about a pointing finger? Nope, not allowed to use Space Marine parts. This is for a normal, regular old human or dwarf or elf.
See, this is where the heroic scale can be good. If we used a realistic scale, none of these would be interchangeable. No human, no elf, no dwarf, no nothing. No interchangeability.
It would be good if you could get them at all, but this isn't just cool for conversions or good, it's basic. Here is someone we have talked about before and who can keep their scale in check. Anvil Industries, their welcome pack.
Meaning the STLs you get for just signing up to their My Mini Factory program called Tribes or their Patreon.
Thank you, Cal.
I'm being helpful.
Right. Anyway, that doesn't come with whatever they are making this month. That is just a bunch of stuff you get for signing on regardless. One of the most basic things they include: hands.
Where are you going to find characterful hands for your conversions? I guess it's time to open up the Blood Bowl mini drawer and hope that they don't have a strap in the middle of their hand so you can use it for a conversion. Hopefully. Maybe, unless it has to be cut off at a weird angle.
We are not talking about any complicated conversion. We are talking about the absolute basics.
And we haven't even gotten into terrain or scale-appropriate buildings or vehicles. I, for the longest time, have wanted to make a Genestealer Cult for an agri-world. I wanted to do some just normal old converting to make it happen. And I was thinking about using some fantasy models and some other things, but then I got to the vehicles and I thought, now, why don't I just look at some scale model farm equipment? And this led me down a rabbit hole I haven't fully been able to escape from.
Okay, forget if you think someone should or shouldn't make an agri-world Genestealer Cult. Would it be cool? Would you feel as if that hit the rule of cool sweet spot? You rock up to your local game store, they're having a mini tournament on AKA, an excuse to hang out or go over the road, have a few drinks during lunch and have a good time. Instead of a Goliath rock grinder, you see a combine harvester or a Children of the Corn mashup. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, that would be cool.
Okay, calm down, Cal.
Oh, okay.
So it would look cool. You would want to show your friends on Instagram, Tinder, or wherever people make friends these days.
Anyway, there are buildings?
Buildings present another problem for both scale and the walled garden idea. Most people can't afford an entire board filled with official Warhammer terrain. Let's say you only have one item of terrain every foot.
And let's continue and be kind and say that the average piece of terrain costs around this time of recording 110 AUD.
It's more.
So for a 40k sparsely decorated table, that would be $660.
You may as well add another 6 because you are damned if you do.
And damned if you don't.
But terrain making can be a hobby in and of itself. But some of the time it's just fun to explore outside of Warhammer, and we're not talking about Warhammer replacements, like the magnetizable rampart building sets by people like Archon Studios. We're talking about things like model train stuff.
Or kitschy stuff from the dollar store.
Or kids' playhouse stuff.
The point is, there's a whole world of stuff to explore, but you can't because it doesn't fit the scale or the theme or whatever roadblock the walled garden has thrown in your way.
The truth is that there is a world of fun when it comes to building your own terrain, and we aren't talking about full-on buy a shed full of tools. I'm talking about, wouldn't that be cool if we just sprayed it up and painted it to be grim dark looking?
But Games Workshop just kept wanting to nudge those sizes a little larger each time, making it so they're just outscale enough so that their own buildings are a distinct thing.
But bigger isn't always better.
Hey, wait, didn't we already do that one?
So let's move on to the reasons why it is an issue and talk about the final point of the three. The breaking of immersion, the scaling problem, and how it's hobby inflation or a hobby tax.
So I don't think we need to beat this drum anymore. You get why it's immersion breaking, why that's a problem, and why you should care about it.
But what we haven't gone over is why it shouldn't be a problem for you. Remember when we said everything is made with computers these days?
Dealing with the digital is very, very different from the physical. To err is human, but when you literally have the exact same file on your computer, why is scale ever an issue? Let me explain. So you can literally compare every single model to every other model that Games Workshop makes with the click of a button. Why should models ever increase in size if the baseline has been determined?
Though Cal may be a bit passionate here, he does make a good point. If you have access to these files, why would there ever be a scale creep issue ever again? Unless
you do it deliberately.
There are lots of nerdy, expensive hobbies out there, but Warhammer and other war games are somewhat unique in one respect.
They are finishable, and not in the way that a video game is finishable. Sure, you can finish Call of Halo Effect, but what about Call of Halo Effect 2? Or the Master Edition? My point is that you can finish an army, and I'm not even getting into this with a deliberate mindset like with Stillmania. I'm saying you can make an army and be done.
This isn't like other niche hobbies like golf, where perhaps your favorite putter has had too much wear and tear, like Magic the Gathering, where the current sets are rotating out, or like gardening, where you want new plants for the next season.
Warhammer is built off the back of an unspoken promise that your models will be usable forever. You're not wasting $100 on whatever it is. You will be able to field this in your army forever.
And that is something that excited me about this hobby, that you could make a piece of usable art and be done.
Sonny, you had something that you wanted to say.
A hobby is supposed to be fun, something you do to relax, to find joy with in your free time, either with friends, family, or simply by yourself. But if you are met with a wall on the price of your hobby, the way you engage with your hobby, painting, modeling, gaming, practically on all fronts of your hobby, what's the point of hobbying at all? Most people buy models because it's like retail therapy. You've had a long, hard day, you've worked hard, and this is something tangible you can put your money towards. Even if you don't paint it now, you can feel happy that at least you've got this kit now while it still exists. And even if you don't paint it soon, you know it'll be painted in the next couple of months. Most people take years to paint up their entire armies. And here's the biggest issue with scale creep. People forget the difference between 1,000,000 seconds and 1,000,000,000 seconds.
1,000,000 seconds is 11.5 days, whereas 1,000,000,000 seconds is 31 years and 8 months. I think I'm picking up what you're putting down. You're saying, hey, this hobby takes time. And it is definitionally meant to take time. That's meant to be part of the enjoyment. Taking your time to enjoy something.
Can you imagine replacing your entire army every time just so you can keep up with the size differences? After you put all that time, effort, and money into it, can you imagine spending years to finally finish up your army, putting effort into building that illusion through your conversions and paint jobs, and you're finally feeling good about playing with your dudes? And then you verse someone who has Imperial Guard who are bigger than your Marines? I don't know about you, but that's going to make me feel like all my effort has been wasted. The whole point of playing tabletop games with physical terrain pieces and models is to feel like you're in these adventures and battles for real. If you can't fully immerse yourself in that tale, there's no point in playing tabletop games.
It's a point worth remembering. But there's one more point I think we should all consider.
And what's that?
Keep those brushes wet. Bye-bye.
Cal, can we please not end the video on something juvenile?
What? I didn't do anything.
Something safe like, wow, Cal, your one's so big.
You're doing the joke right now?
Okay, yep, I can see that. Maybe big compared to mine? No, that won't work.
I need it pointed out that I didn't do anything.
Just something normal, like, I can't believe how big it's getting.
Son?
Or how about, just because a model is bigger doesn't mean it's more satisfying to hold in your hand.
You've got to be doing this on purpose.
And remember, we're not making jokes about heroic scale. That means no innuendos about exaggerated proportions.
That's way worse.
Fine. Maybe something like, some people just prefer their soldiers to be thick with big hands.
Do you hear yourself?
Some people just think a bigger base makes the whole thing more impressive, but people can tell when you're putting your little guy on a bigger base.
I give up.
It's not about size, it's just something that makes you want to wet your brush.
I'm out.
Because of the keeping your brushes wet, you know, the little guy can make you want to... yeah, I see it now.